Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the News Behind the News with Ralph Cantava on Mix 94.7 FM. And I hope you had a great St. Martin Day and that the ideals, the vision, the purpose as to why that day exists, is something that still remains dear to you. Of course, we are still monitoring the situation over on the other side of the island regarding the strike and the protests, the blockades, and so forth. But, next week we will be bringing in some persons to elaborate a bit more on that, some of the leaders from the French side to talk about the difficulties they've been facing, and to further break down the cause of this. But nevertheless, I have here with me Member of Parliament Ludmila Duncan from the National Alliance. And good afternoon, and thank you for being on the program.
Good afternoon, Ralph. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. Thanks.
Okay, great. And so to start off with our icebreaker, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
So who am I? I am Astrid's mother. So I have a daughter. She's 8 years old. She is the light of my life. I am the daughter of Roland and Solange Duncan. Proud of my parents and the work that they have done and they continue to do in the community. What else? I'm a number of different things. I'm a Virgo. I'm a hip hop head.
Like, who are you? Tell me about yourself.
Exactly, because we usually go to school, right? So that's why I wanted to do something different and talk about, who I am at home. But then, of course, I have to go to the fact that I'm a proud.
Multifaceted.
Yes. We're proud St. Martina. Went to MAC, went to Academy, studied in the United States.
The road to success, by the way.
Exactly. Ding, ding, ding. Studied in the United States, in the Netherlands as well, in the Virgin Islands too.
So you hopped around a bit.
Yes, I am an adventurer. That is something that I don't know if people know, but I love adventure, and I love.
So even as far as nature-wise, like do you do hikes often and travel often?
I do. I love to travel. I do hike. I spend every Sunday at the beach, sometimes different beaches. So I love to be in nature. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I love to enjoy life, especially our island. So
yeah, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean we have a beautiful island. People literally pay to come here.
Exactly.
So it doesn't hurt to enjoy. Yeah, this blessing.
Exactly. So that's what I do, and that's me. I make the most out of life.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so then, school wise, what did you study? So you mentioned UVI, US.
Yeah. So I. So after, and I heard this from a colleague MP, after Academy, I spent a year at USM also.
That's such a common route to say.
So I spent a year at USM, and then I went to Florida where I studied marketing, actually.
Interesting.
Studied marketing and management. In my third year, however, I had this calling to sort of, I don't know. It was almost as if I needed to remind myself of who I was as a Caribbean person. So I left because I was in Miami. I was in Orlando as well. I was doing a lot of partying. I shouldn't say that, but that's what I was doing. And so I left in my third year and I moved to St. Thomas because it was close to home. I could also transfer my credits pretty easily. But what was interesting, and I think that you would like this, is that for me, it gave me such a wake-up call because I was in a Caribbean setting at a historically Black university. And I had professors who would walk in with locks to the floor, in slippers on and in shorts to teach me about Caribbean literature and what it means to be a Caribbean woman. And that changed my whole perspective. And so it's something that I always... I promote to our students now. You can go to the Netherlands and do the standard thing, but you could also go to universities in the region, or you could go to historically Black universities that give us something extra that we need. Yes. So that is what I did. So I finished at UVI. I came back home. I worked for a couple of years. I went to the Netherlands. I started my master's at the University of Leiden in public administration. So I have this love for marketing, but I also have a love for government and politics. And I said, if I am going to be a change maker someday, I need to understand the workings of government. So I moved to Leiden, and I actually only did about one semester before coming back home to work in government as a policy advisor in my father's cabinet in the Ministry of Justice.
Okay. One of the things you said that's pretty interesting is, of course, wanting to touch base with your Caribbean identity. You shared the need, in a sense, to go to a regional university or HBCU. I mean, I went to HBCU,
Yeah.
which was FAMU.
Yeah.
And even in the region, we have such great institutions like University of West Indies.
Yep.
You have those in Trinidad and Barbados, etc. And it's like, while I do believe everyone has their choice, whether you want to study as far as Australia, but it is something meaningful and powerful, because we tend to label or put everything black as just this one in one bubble.
Yep.
But there is diversity in blackness and in being a Caribbean person.
Yes.
And so forth.
And we need to understand that, especially as St. Martin people, we need to work on that foundation that is a part of, that is who we are, and be proud of who we are, and not say, okay, well, this is how it is done here, and this is what we have to copy. There are things about us that we should be proud of. And so that's why I think it's so important to experience different cultures, but also to embrace who we are, as a people. And so that was important to me, and it has shaped who I am as a person, but also, I believe, as a young politician. Yes.
Sure. Okay. And so what would you say is one of the things that motivated you to get into politics? Was it, I guess, this, of course, maybe your dad, him, being a significant political figure on the island, or because some people I know may have that disdain for politics because it's like you grew up around it.
Yes. You can actually go both ways, actually, because I've seen it. I've seen persons who said, I've seen my parents stay out of the house all day, so why would I want that for myself? And then I've seen those of us in Parliament. You could see now how much I would call us, legacy politicians there are now. So for me, I went the other route, definitely because it is a part of who I am, and it runs in my blood. But also too, I mean, my mother is someone who, her service to the community and to people, being a teacher, that was something that obviously I thought even when I didn't think that it was a part of who I was, it's yeah. So for me, suddenly, I think after high school, I realized that I wanted to understand how a country is supposed to be run, and who I needed to be to be a part of the change that I needed. And so I began to study in college Caribbean politics, and public administration, because at the end of the day, it's government. And I am so happy now that our students are studying public administration, because they didn't before. And I make jokes about this with the generation before me. Now everything is about a generation, right? So millennials, I call myself a Zennial. There's a Gen X, and the Gen Xers who could possibly be the first generation of educated St. Martiners, more so, right? Yeah. So they more than anyone really went away to college. They came back and they ran the private companies on St. Martin. So you would see them, right, in management positions all over in the private sector. They didn't come back to the public sector. And so our students weren't studying public administration and public sector management.
There were very few people.
No.
Yeah.
We have students coming. Yeah, no. Students are coming back and saying, hey, listen, this is how we're supposed to run government. And that's where I believe we've lacked, and that's where the gap was. And now we're going to see a difference, I believe.
So even on that, then how do we, I guess, develop or move past the complications that I know a lot of my peers have working in government with persons who believe in running things, let's say, the way it always has been, with a particular culture that not necessarily falls in line with, a set process and so forth. How would you, I guess, maybe advise, or what is your take then on the way forward? To move past just, okay, we're going to do this just 'cause this is how I know it, and this is how it was done 20 years ago, to, this just a new process, a new way of doing things.
Well, I experienced it myself. So it's been 12 years since I started as a policy advisor in government. So I came back as a young person, fresh out of university. And I would say, I'm a little rebellious. Push against the grain and take initiative. So for me, coming into government and being told, hey, listen, this is how it is done, and saying, okay, well, let's try it this way. So change management is huge because change is difficult because it's like, should I trust you? Who are you to come and tell me that this is how it should be done? So it's important that we understand change management and bringing ideas across in the best possible way. But we need to push against what is normal and standard, but we need to do it in such a way that everyone is included and that, no one feels offended. So it's building relationships, so not coming in thinking that you're smarter because you can learn from those that are there.
That is true.
There is a culture. Respect that culture. You're bringing something in that's new, but show why your ideas are innovative and can take the organization further, because that's what it's about. We're not here to destroy. We're here to develop St. Martin to make it better for us, but for our children as well. So I think if we have that understanding, pushing against the grain just needs to be done in a manner in which everyone can feel respected and a part of the process. And I think change is possible.
Okay.
Sitting back, though, is not going to.
Yeah, because I was going to ask then, do you feel that for a lot of persons, they push back and then end up getting comfortable? Because what do you say? A lot of the civil corps is comfortable, I guess. And I could understand varying factors such as, of course, the multiple changing governments.
Yeah, so it's complex, right? So it's a number of things. You come back and you try and you get resistance, so you give up, you quit. We've seen a lot of persons, young people come into government and was like, you know what, I'm not dealing with this. I'm going into the private sector. Some that get comfortable and say, you know what, I'm just going to follow the flow of the river and I'm not going to make any waves. But like I said, again, it's really change management. So it's necessary. And how do I get everyone on board and we work together to make things better? Because I think everyone wants to see government improve. It's how do we improve it in such a way that everyone is happy. It's tough though, but it's a process, and I don't think that we can give up on the process.
Okay, and I figure then, having served as a policy advisor, that may have given you an edge in Parliament because, of course, you definitely do understand what it takes to prepare policy, advise ministers, and so forth. And so now that you are on the other side as a legislator, how has that given you an edge? And I guess how has that assisted you in serving as a parliamentarian, where of course you guys are definitely, let's say, the overseers of what government does? Yes,
it's funny. I don't know if all of us look at it this way, right? Because our parliament. It's just parliament, right? As opposed to both in the Netherlands and in the United States. So there's a first and a second chamber. In the United States, there's a House of Representatives and there's a Senate, right? So I'm like I'm half representative in my mind. I want to be AOC, but then I'm also like a senator because I have a responsibility to legislate. So for me, being a policy advisor has definitely given me an edge, but at the same time, I would hope that people can understand that it would take time to bring legislation. So for me, I understand that the research that needs to happen will take some time for legislation to be effectively executed, because what we've seen, especially over the last couple of years, is that legislation is passed, but you're waiting for it to be implemented, but there's a problem because it wasn't taught through all the way down to policy level. That is what is happening now. And I said, well, it's not supposed to be, but that's what is happening. And so if we understand policy, we would know that, okay, if a law is changed, that change needs to be sort of transferred into a policy at ground level that can be executed. And I think that there's a gap that has taken place over the last few years where laws are changed and passed, but we're not seeing it being implemented.
But how do we What is Bob and weave through that through that process?
We need to work closer together with government. Parliament needs to work more closely with government, and MPs need to understand what is happening at the ground, at policy level, and that is a thing. When I came in as a policy advisor, I remember finding it extremely, and this is not only on St. Martin, but policy advisors sit down on the third floor and the second floor of the government building, and something is happening, let's say, at a school. And you don't know what's happening at the school exactly because you're not on the ground. So there is that gap that needs to be filled by collaboration and partnership. And that's what I believe in. I believe that we need to consult more.
Enhance communication.
Yes, communication is also important. And that is why I have a couple of initiatives coming for changing the way in which Parliament actually operates. Because in the Netherlands, for instance, MPs can present policy proposals.
Oh, interesting.
And that is what I believe we need to do as well. So in addition
that's interesting because I guess, you're one, yes, parliamentarians, your responsibility and job is also to legislate.
Yes.
But we do know that that's a long process. Take about 9 months to a year. And then, of course, you can also present motions. But that's another process in itself that is not necessarily binding.
Yeah.
But I like that because it makes it easier to kind of address some of the issues that the country faces. But I guess my question to that then, although it's possible, let's say in the Netherlands, if a parliament does that, does the government have to take up the policy, or would it just be a matter of recommendation?
Well, what government would have to do is work alongside Parliament and said, okay, once the proposal is agreed to, say if Parliament, just like how it would pass legislation, if it is passed though, but government has a role to play in saying, okay, listen, realistically, this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do. Because motions are kind of one way. Right? So it's like, hey, listen, you have to do this. This would be more of a two-way street where government comes in, the debate on the policy is done and said, okay, listen, this is what I can execute, and this is what we agreed to execute in. Because government, and they talk about being strapped for capacity and resources, and we all have a resource problem, actually. So we all need more legislative writers.
The difficulty in that is that for the public, you hear that, but then it's like you see an inflated government. So it's like, and I had other MP, Ludmila Duncan here, and she basically explained that, for example, one of the issues is you have that certain roles, they are either vacant or you have limited persons in that department, let's say. But again, it's just like when you look at it overall, we do have a lot of persons employed by government.
Yeah.
So
we do.
What is stopping that efficiency?
It's actually a small island problem. I've studied small island politics, and governments are always the biggest. Public sector is always the biggest employer. It's kind of how we get through things, but we do need a whole. I don't know if to call it reform or a whole redesign of how the public sector is managed and how government is managed, because indeed we do have positions that are redundant. We have positions where persons can be moved. And that's why I asked recently the Minister of Labour, although it is General Affairs, the Prime Minister, and Human Resources, we need to be able to allow our civil servants to be more flexible, to move to other sectors, to move and to be retrained. Because I think we would see an increase, not only productivity, but in general, happiness. We have civil servants I was going to say some of these, but that might be a little extreme. But you do see this, it's like
just gloominess.
Yes.
You know, yeah.
And that is just the plain truth. I'm all about being honest. So for me, we need to just be more flexible and offer our civil servants a chance to not necessarily come out of government, but to go into new positions because they might have something to offer. And that was I personally moved from justice to education to TIAT to learn about the different ministries, to learn different types of policies, and to get an understanding for each ministry, and maybe to give and to take.
I got you.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I guess on that note, it's just like, you have huge companies that have huge budgets and that may even have more workers than we have, employed by government. It's like, look what this company can do. And I do get, of course, a company, the way a government is run is totally different because the aim is different. But, again, it's like when you measure efficiency, it's like too much red tape.
Yes. And something, Ralph, with our generation, we want to be experts, but we also believe in diversity, right? So it's like we're not just one thing. So I could be an expert in different areas, and I can bring something creative into this realm, and in this other realm bring something else. And that's what I believe that we should be focusing on, not to have someone working for 25, 35 years in one area. That expertise can be used in another area and maybe bring something new to the table.
So I like a statement you made earlier, because it's actually one of the questions I have for you, which is, what is your take on Parliament, on how Parliament has served St. Martin in the past 11 years, and how do you personally plan to make a difference?
So, Parliament has not been as effective as it could have been. Definitely not, because indeed we have a number of different roles. So we should hold government accountable. Have Parliament been doing that in the most effective way? I think we're improving now. We've seen some improvements especially over this last year. Legislation takes way too long, and that is a capacity issue. We need more legislative lawyers and writers. That is something that is extremely important, and that is why I think that bringing policy proposals to Parliament will help government to be more effective, at least from a policy standpoint. What else is there? There's a lot of improvements that need to be made, but I think we're seeing now improvements in Parliament with this new wave of parliamentarian. But we shouldn't be scared of the changes, and I think we should embrace whatever comes, because it can only be for the development of St. Martin. At this point, we don't have any choice but to improve, because we've had 10 years of
trial and error.
Whew, that's a nice way to put it. Trial and error, definitely. So I think we need to, we need to push, and we need to be creative, and we shouldn't be scared of changes.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. So on that note, we'll take a quick break and be right back. Welcome back, everyone. You're tuned into the news behind the news on Mix 94.7 FM, and thank you for listening. I'm joined with Member of Parliament Ludmila Duncan, and we basically just left off on how Parliament can improve. One of the things that came to mind is, of course, have this Parliament started looking at budgeting for lawyers, because had at least, I think you're probably the fifth member of Parliament on the program, and then everyone has expressed that. But as far as now working towards actually enhancing the capacity for Parliament, what is I guess I would say, where does that stand?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, because we keep talking about it, right? Are we doing something?
Yeah.
Yes, no, definitely. The former chairman, MP Bryson, I believe, has requested quotes from different firms around the island. So definitely, it is being worked on. And what we would do is, I guess, form a partnership, and in order to get the work in, because the SGs are actually are responsible for assisting us.
Correct.
But again, they can't do everything. It's so much, yes. So yes, so something is being done, and I'm hoping that over the next couple of months it can come to the floor for discussion, and we can move forward about what we're going to do and which firm maybe we can work with to write more legislation. Yeah.
Okay. And is there anything additional you yourself will be coming forward, proposing or coming forward with?
Yes. What is important for me, and I think for the country, especially because of how small we are, but how close-knit we are too, is that we improve the way in which Parliament interacts with the public. So for me, it's important that not only communication from Parliament to the public increases, but that it's a two-way street as well. So I would love to see, and the proposal just needs to be finalized, the public being able to get points on the agenda, so the public being able to say, hey, listen, Parliament, this is what we want to see debated. These are topics that are important to us. Although we do talk about current events a lot, but perhaps the public wants discussions on matters that we don't talk about. And so being able to have the public vote on topics that are interesting to them, that are urgent to them, so that we get to a place where Parliament is seen as working closely along with the people we represent.
More, as you would say, direct democracy.
Yes, direct democracy, participative democracy. Yes,
gotcha.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
And how would that work? I guess it basically sounds like a more of a first step before you get to the point of a petition.
Yes, well, so the petition is possible where a citizen says or a resident says, hey, I have an issue. They send a letter to Parliament. It has to fit a criteria. But I was looking at the UK, and they actually allow citizens to go online and they can submit, it's actually called a petition. They can submit an issue. And let's say, I believe the threshold is 10,000 votes. So if 10,000 residents or citizens vote on the topic, it automatically goes onto the agenda.
Okay.
So something like that.
And so how was that process then, I guess, in formalizing that? And is that something the Parliament will have to agree on once you're finished?
So the proposal will be submitted, and then we have to have a discussion on it, because I can imagine, some MPs might say, hey, well, you're opening us up to, we're going to let people decide. Yes, I believe that we should let the people decide, what we debate in here. So that's my personal opinion, and I hope to bring that to the floor soon.
Okay. The debate and that should be interesting.
Yes.
But that is good to know, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the other things, and talking about Parliament, it's time now, I think many would say, that Parliament has its own building. I know the discussion started. What is your take on that, and how has any further movements been taking place to see this become a reality? So
it's definitely time. It's past time. The ad hoc committee for the new Parliament building has been busy, has presented at least a short memo to the Minister of Vromi. But yes, most of us in discussions has said that we would like to see the new Parliament building in the place of the old government building, and also that we would want to share that building with the High Councils of State. So that is the idea. And really and truly right now, it's just Parliament and government getting together and making a decision on how we're going to move forward. Of course, the building would have to be budgeted for. I'm not sure if it is already budgeted for, but the discussions have begun, because indeed Parliament needs its own building. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that we recently saw take place was the verdict on the Constitutional Court case, and looking back at the root of how that came about was simply the fact that St. Martin was desperate for a financial injection, and so as a condition to receive that liquidity loan from the Netherlands, we had to enact these laws. But what, in your view, needs to be done to improve our island's financial management in order to really strengthen our autonomy, so that a case like this is not repeated?
Yes. That was an extremely tough time for me as a member of parliament, because suddenly I understood now where, you know, you're forced to make decisions that you don't want to make. However, at the same time, you're being told that it is in the best interest of the people and we have no other choice, right? So it's an emotional decision. Honestly, I wasn't that surprised by the verdict of the Constitutional Court, but we have a lot of work to do. For me, when it comes to financial management, I believe that there are areas in which we're neglecting as a country. I believe that we can develop new industries here, and whether it's small industries, light manufacturing, I believe that we can do here. I also believe that there are sectors that are not only underdeveloped, but that we're not tapping into for financing. I always look at the marine sector as one of those sectors where not only should our people be more involved in terms of job creation, but the fees that are charged, there's a lot that is left to be desired. So I think that there are places, whether it's green taxes or increased tourist tax, definitely not increasing the burden on our people. We have enough people coming to this country in which we can lessen the burden, and we have areas that we're not looking at. One of the big issues that we still need to tackle is our environment. Our lagoons are polluted, and the beautiful yachts and boats they do not pay to keep our lagoons clean. Enforcement and controls are not done.
The heritage aspect of how the lagoon presently is one to consider.
Preservation, protecting our parks, land parks, marine. These are things that we have to do and that we can charge, because every other country charges for protection and conservation. So we know what the issues are. I know that it's being worked on, but again, things take too long and we need to really speed up what needs to be done, especially because we need the money to do it, and we cannot continue on this current path as it concerns liquidity and our autonomy. You're right.
Yeah, and so and one of the as far as talking about the finances is, everyone is still awaiting the budget to be debated in Parliament.
Yes, still waiting on it, and when it comes, we'll have that debate. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So even as you just mentioned, basically not placing the burden on our people. One of the things I think we definitely have to look out for and be prepared for is food security.
Mm-hmm.
We see a sharp rise in prices of food products and goods in general. And so in what way can we, start ensuring that St. Martin is secured for times ahead? Because, of course, we will always remain hopeful, but as far as reality is concerned, we are seeing increased prices that you can basically say that nations will more than likely start hoarding products for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't produce much. So,
and we can, honestly, and it's interesting, and I always talk openly about this because it's the truth. Working in government for so long, seeing that there have been ministries that have had on their budget monies to support farming and local farming and agriculture in schools, and we haven't done what we should have done. Now we're like, oh gosh, But we have to support our local farmers, and more farmers are popping up. We also have to look at who we trade with, and that was why I was a proponent, and I spoke to the Prime Minister of associate membership in the OECS. Because, trade, we need to look at who we trade with. Why should we import bananas from Miami when Dominica is right there? We already have relationships with the countries. Let's look at our trading partners. Let's improve those relationships. We have more people farming right now. I actually am one of those persons now who say, hey, listen, I'm buying locally grown fruits and vegetables. I am also buying locally made skin and hair products.
Yes, there's been an uptick in that.
Yes, and we have so many. I'm so proud of our entrepreneurs right now. So all they need to be is supported by government, and an environment needs to be created in which they can flourish. That is all.
Because the challenge in that too is also, again, this raising productivity to the level where it can cover the cost of the country itself.
Yes. And I know it's tough because, let's say, land is a scarce resource. I went to Puerto Rico a couple of years ago, and I met with a friend who actually lived here for a time being. And there the government has said, okay, listen, we're going to support small local manufacturers. We are going to give you a space in which you can create a very small plant, so for like, I have to big up Afrobel. That's where I buy my oils and my hair butter. If she just needs, let's say, a 10 by 10 space to create light manufacturing, and then let's say a tax break. These are the little things that can be done and that can support new industries and our local farmers, those families that have private land that are not using the land. Can government issue an incentive for them to give their land to a farmer to use for farming? Yes, these are not things that are impossible to do. We just need to be creative, and we just need to agree that if we are dedicated and if we are really committed to changing the way in which we operate as a country, and if we do want to tackle food security, we have some land that we can use. It's not impossible. We just need to be innovative about it.
Gotcha. Yep. And as we spoke about, solidifying or protecting Samarita's autonomy, finances is one part. But one of the other areas I think that is not too often regarded is advice.
Yes.
I say that because, we have our High Council of State, and sometimes international bodies that come here and render so many advices in ways Samarita can improve. And it seems like they are just received with a smile, but then maybe tucked under a drawer or in a cabinet. And so, how can we actually really make use of the wisdom, the resources available to us to improve our public administration? But I think that also leads to us really being able to say that we're an autonomous state.
That's good. That's a good observation, and you're right. Honestly, we have persons that have the heart and are in positions, but may not have the knowledge. So trainings and workshops are important. It's just like with entrepreneurs who have a talent, but would need to understand management, that would need to understand accounting. That's basically what needs to be done. Because as I said, now our people are studying public administration. So for those that are not really aware of what needs to take place about the, that are knowledgeable about the policy cycle, we just need to share the information, and we need to have trainings and workshops. That's what needs to happen. Because indeed, if you are a policy advisor, you should be using the advice from the High Council of State in your policy. As a minister, yes, you should have a political vision for the country, but that vision should also be backed up by research and data, and we know that we have a problem with data and research. So for those high councils of state that actually are doing the research, somehow we need to work it into the everyday workings of government. And you're right, it's not done as it should be done. And I'm not sure how else we could do it, but yeah.
Okay. And so as we mentioned, autonomy, decolonization, of course, is one of the big ticket, maybe topics or items. And I know that you're the vice chair of the Decolonization Committee.
The chair, actually.
Oh, the chair. My bad. Yeah, so the chair of the Decolonization Committee. Has there been anything that has been worked on recently? Are there any meetings that will be taking place anytime soon?
Yes. So, you know what? Like I said, when COVID happened and the conditions came down, There were political responses. There were also emotional responses. So I actually submitted a proposal for the establishment of a decolonization committee and a permanent committee. Why? Because too, Ralph, the decolonization is not, it's not simple, because we're talking the systems that we have inherited, right? The political system, the system of government. But there's some intangible aspects about decolonization as well, right? Mindset, language, the way in which we see each other. So when we talk about the kingdom, there is a Kingdom Relations Committee in Parliament, but it only consists of faction leaders. And that was why I believe that a separate committee needed to be established. Now, the idea moving forward is that a roadmap is being worked on for us to work locally, regionally, and internationally, although things have happened in the past. So a petition was sent out. We also have the Pro Swaliga Foundation that has been working with the UN on whether, and actually it's the documentation is there, that technically the Netherlands Antilles, if you compare us to other countries who were deemed self-governing after being colonies, all of these things need to happen. Locally, what is being worked on now is that an expert panel, a roundtable discussion has to be hosted. Why? So we can look at the Kingdom Charter, because you would hear often that we have democratic deficits, right? So are we autonomous?
Democracy and kingdom is kind of alone. Yeah, a kingdom doesn't function like a democracy.
No, it doesn't, So now all of the islands actually are asking themselves, okay, is this what we signed up for? You hear struggles in Statia with what is happening in Bonaire as well, right? So all of us are asking ourselves, okay, at 10-10-10, we voted for a new status within the kingdom. But we're now kind of seeing that there are deficits that we're not happy with. We have ministers plenipotentiary in the Netherlands who will never have an equal standing, in Holland. What does that mean for us? How do we redefine ourselves as kingdom citizens? And that's where we're at now. So a roadmap is being worked on, and what we will have is basically local, regional, and international discussions on the kingdom, on the charter, what needs to be changed, where do we go from here?
Okay. And so what does decolonization mean to you, and what are some of the first steps do we take to actually decolonize?
So decolonization to me means a stripping away of colonial systems, processes, thoughts, mindsets, and us redefining our ancestral and indigenous systems, processes, mindsets, and getting back to what that means, because what does it really mean? So what is a St. Martin way of doing things? Because we have an Antillean, system, which is actually based on a Dutch model. But what do we need it to be? You spoke about language in the Justices, that interview, a number of interviews actually. But looking at the justice sector and the language, if we're going to say, hey, we're going to take the British model and we're going to translate our laws into English, but we're going to use British common law, this is what our people need, that should be a decision that we take, and this is how we should move forward. Why? Because it fits us. Do you know that in Saba and in Station now there is no more Dutch education? Mm-hmm. Did that make sense to you when you heard it?
Well, at the end of the day, English is a predominant language of the world. Mm-hmm. So not that many people speak Dutch besides the Netherlands, really.
But the best became a municipality of the Netherlands, right?
Yeah. So it's I guess you're saying it's kind of like a contradiction.
Exactly, but it's the truth. It's honest. So we have to be honest with ourselves now, right? So which systems work for us, which systems need to change, and based on who we are, that for me is why decolonization is so important. Is it emotional? a part of it is, yes, but it's also us needing to know who we are and create systems that work for us.
And how do you intend to further raise awareness to the public?
So what I will admit that we fail to do a proper communication campaign. We fail to inform the public, also ask the public their thoughts. It's a term that we never really used before, nationally. We never really talked about decolonization. We don't even talk about, the fact that our history, and there's a meeting coming up, but we still need to talk about our curriculum and St. Martin history. So there needs to be more communication, more information going out. We need to have discussions, debates. We just need to improve the information. And I think we'll begin to feel more comfortable about it and to understand what is happening.
Okay. And how do you see St. Martin moving forward with its relationship with the Netherlands? It's definitely been a bit hostile or tense for a while now. So,
I think that the relationship will improve if we are honest with not only ourselves but with our kingdom partners. I think the relationship will improve, but it just needs to be based on honesty. 2020, I keep saying, was this historical year. Everyone was talking about, let's say, the Black Lives Matter movement and colonization and decolonization. We've seen what Barbados is doing right now. So we're not the only ones talking about who we are as a people and what it means to be in this kingdom. What I think that we do need to be honest about is how far we've come. And once we say, okay, this is who we are, this is who you are, we need to improve. We need to improve how we speak to each other. But I think that needs to be based on honesty. And I think it'll improve because it's like this reality that we're being faced with. So it's harsh. And I think from there, then we can move forward in a better light, as opposed to pretending like things never happen and sweeping things under the rug. I think now that the light is kind of being shown on the kingdom, and I think that because most of us are disgruntled, and when I say most of us, I mean in the islands, we each have like an issue that we're dealing with. I think we can move forward in a better light based on like honesty.
Okay. And I like one of the things you mentioned, basically relating to entrepreneurs on the island. Reason being is because I remember last year during the lockdown, you had a meeting with some entrepreneurs on St. Martin.
Yes.
And basically my last question for you is how do you intend to assist this sector, in ensuring that, more St. Martin people again can really become producers, but also grow beyond the limits of St. Martin?
So I actually am doing research and working on legislation for small business development because I can't remember the percentage number. Isn't it like over 80% of our businesses are small?
Oh, the statistics for that I'm not aware of, actually.
Yes, the Chamber of Commerce released them, but it's a huge amount of our businesses are small and medium sized. We have so many entrepreneurs right now, and that actually was exacerbated from Irma, right? So not everyone, but so many people lost their jobs, and it was like, okay, well, how can I be creative? How can I make money for myself? So small business development is extremely important. And as I mentioned earlier, just the environment needs to be conducive. Right? So taxes need to cater. There needs to be a system in which small businesses are not burdened by taxes, whether it's through breaks, whether it's through unique percentages for them. We also can promote, I believe, at this time, export. I think there are a couple of businesses that have export potential. Let's connect with our regional partners. Again, joining the OECS, even Anguilla. Why can't our products be sold in Anguilla? Whether it's skin care products or hair products. I think we have potential. We just need to create an environment in which our entrepreneurs can flourish. So it's something that I'm working on, and I hope at least within the next year can become a reality.
Yeah, and one of the things we have to consider too is the financial aspect. Particularly being part of the OCS or even CARICOM, because they are the membership fees. But I think we are working towards becoming a part of CARICOM, if I'm not mistaken.
No, actually, well, OECS now, I believe, where the little pressure has been put forward on the agenda, it's a smaller group, and I think it matches who we are as a smaller, as opposed to CARICOM. But the thing is with the membership fees, which could be, let's say, 30,000, I'm not sure. Well, you get so much out of it, though. You get so much support, and resources and the trainings and advice, just like how you talked about advice would come from that you know what, hey, over here we're expert in this, we can help you, we can help to develop this industry here. So for me, it's a no-brainer that the associate membership has to be secured. And trust me, they're waiting for it too. There's something about St. Martin, right, that we're so unique. I see it when I go to conferences, and it's like, oh man, we want to know more about you. We want to be connected to you. So just as we want to be connected to them, they also want to be connected to us. So we can't allow political instability to keep us from where I believe that we need to be in the region.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, MP Duncan.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you so much. It was a great conversation.
Definitely.
Thank you, Ralph.
So to our viewers and listeners, I hope you also enjoyed this discussion that we had, and do take care and enjoy your weekend. Okay, great.
Yay.